Our Going Green segment tonight sponsored by GM Best Cleaning Services, cleaning homes and businesses on the South Shore of Massachusetts. We are joined by Dr. Dick Berggren, a returning guest to the show. Pleasure to have you. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm glad to be with you. I just wish the weather here in New England would warm up a little bit. I've just come back from a week in California, and stepping off the plane tonight was an experience, I got to tell you. Oh, yes, I am in New England for sure, and it's cold. Absolutely. Bitter cold here in November, that's for sure. So great to talk to you again, first and foremost. And we've got an exciting event coming up at the museum in Loudon, New Hampshire, the New England Racing Museum. Talk to us a little bit about a day that not only is going to be honoring you, but honoring a couple of great announcers and broadcasters in the sport on November 12th. Well, the event is called Legends Day, and it began, 5 years ago. The museum's just a little over 5 years old at this point. And this isn't a brainstorm from the late Russ Conway. And he decided that it would be nice to put together some people who had accomplished a great deal here in New England and put them on a stage and have an MC, talk to them and try to get some good comments out of them and make it a fun afternoon for folks who were in the audience. And that very first one had Bugsy Stevens, who then was in great health, and he was really funny. Paula Bouchard representing her husband. George Summers, who had his wife, by the way, Bugsy's wife was also there. And it was just a rockin' good time. It was really fun. And since then, we've done an event with super modified people, another with Bush North people, another with midgets. And every one of them has been either a sellout or a near sellout. And this one is going to be a sellout tomorrow. So anybody that wants to participate in this, you got to buy your tickets tomorrow before 5 o'clock, or it's going to be too late. It will sell out at the rate things are going. And this is going to be focused on the announcers who began their careers here in New England and went on to bigger and better things. It involves, as you mentioned, Ken Squire. Ken won't be there. Dave Moody, who does a wonderful job on Motor Racing Network, is subbing for him. Mike Joy, who has covered more Daytona 500s on television as the anchor than anybody else. Who would have imagined this guy as a driving instructor started his career at Riverside Park, at that little quarter mile in Agawam, Mass., and now he's covered more Daytona 500s than anybody, and he is going to be on stage. And Jack Arute is going to be there as well. Many years with ABC and ESPN. And Alan Bestwick is going to be there. Alan Bestwick is the MC for the event, and I'm going to be on stage. I'm feeling like everybody else that's there is a lot more important than me. So I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut and let the big guys have their say on that Sunday. So you've worked with each one of those names you've mentioned. Yes. Let's dive into, your working experience. A good story maybe for each of the other guests on the stage, or maybe one story that sticks out in particular working with the likes of Ken Squire and Mike Joy and Jack Arute, Alan Bestwick emceeing, as you said. You must have a good story. Well, let's start out with Ken Squire. Of all of us who are there, Ken played a greater role, the greatest role in getting television going on auto racing. And he had done a lot of things in auto racing as an announcer and also as the founder of Thunder Road Speedway and working with local racetracks and that sort of thing. But I think his biggest accomplishment was connecting with CBS and persuading CBS that they should do a live flag-to-flag coverage of the Daytona 500, which they did in 1979. And Ken was the play-by-play guy in that event. That's the one where, on the very last lap, we had Donnie Allison and Cale Yarborough going at it together, going down the backstretch. They're running into each other. They both crash. And in the infield, there's a fire, and Ken just did that brilliant call on how the fight was going on in the infield. And I'm not even going to try to imitate what he did, but it was absolutely classic. And that race drew a huge audience. We didn't have any cable back then. It was just live over-the-air television. And it was a lot of snow here in the Northeast. People had nothing better to do than watch television, and they discovered NASCAR, and they discovered big league stock car racing, and this incredible announcer who could tell the story like nobody else. Ken was certainly one of the best ever at telling stories on television about the people that race cars and why they're such special folks. Mike Joy, I mean, here's a guy that started out as a driving instructor, and I think the things that I remember the most about Mike, though, is working with him at Thompson. Neither one of us had ever done a television broadcast at that point. But there was a time in New England where NESMA, the New England Super Modified Racing Association, had leased the track every Sunday night. And Mike and I were the two announcers. And you talk about fun. The two of us sitting side by side, and you got Ollie Silva and Don McLaren banging wheels with each other, a full field of super modified cars, fuel injected, running direct drive stuff, cars where you could really see the driver. This is before the days of the wing. And look where he went. I mean, Mike went from that to doing Motor Racing Network. He went from Motor Racing Network to some little stuff in cable, but he was so good at everything he did. He just kept marching up. And when Fox got involved with big league NASCAR coverage, Mike was selected. There were a lot of people that ran for that job, and Mike was selected for it, and they got the right guy. And now he's had a long career there. Jack Arute, a long career with ESPN, and others as well. But most of his time was with ESPN and also ABC, covering the Indianapolis 500. And I'll never forget one particular Indy 500 race where I had been there for Open Wheel magazine. I was writing the story and covering it with whatever photography I could get. And I got on the plane, and Jack was on the plane too. And I looked over at him, and he was drained, absolutely drained. And I thought, I can't imagine what it must be like to do television of the Indianapolis 500. And here's this guy that started out at Stafford Speedway in Connecticut, behind the microphone, talking about the guys that race on Friday nights. Boy, hasn't he gone a long way. And he sure has. Alan Bestwick, I worked with Alan certainly many, many times. Working for TBS, I think he is one of the most underrated of all the announcers that have come out of New England and gone to the big time. His big deal right now is Indianapolis. He is the play-by-play guy for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So when you are sitting in the grandstand for the biggest race in the world at Indianapolis, the voice that you hear is New England's own Alan Bestwick. And he is going to be our MC. For me, I just wanted to go to the races. And somehow or another, I wound up doing as an announcer at Arundel Speedway one night, and went from there to more Speedway announcing here in New England. It went from there to radio, and it went from there to television. And I still can't quite believe that I've had the opportunities that I have to interview the winners of the Daytona 500 and to be able to work with people like Bestwick, Squire, Mike Joy, and Jack Arute. I've worked with every one of them, and every one of them has been a true professional. New England needs to be proud of the people that have come out of here and the history that has been made here in New England in automobile racing. First ever oval track race in the United States, New England, 1896, Cranston, Rhode Island, a dirt track. First purpose-built road course in the United States, Thompson Speedway. First live flag-to-flag of the Daytona 500, Ken Squire. I mean, New England's played a big role in the history of auto racing.
Now, we've talked about the voices of New England and how legendary they are. Who are some of the drivers coming up from the beginning of your broadcasting career to maybe even today that you think deserve to be represented in that Hall of Fame one day?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that are in the Hall of Fame. Certainly Joey Logano, twice the NASCAR Top Series champion, is one of those. But we've got so many other champions of National Series. Bugsy Stevens, three-time NASCAR Modified Championship winner. Freddie DeSero, the late Freddie DeSero, gave his all to this sport, including his life. Ollie Silva, Bugsy Stevens, Don McLaren, and on the list goes of people who have absolutely thrilled us for so many years here, whether it be the little tiny dirt track at Keene, New Hampshire that is now long gone, or whether it's Thompson Speedway for the big races at the end of the year in October. We're very fortunate here. This is a part of the world that's seen some incredible automobile racing and some terrific drivers, and I guess some pretty good announcers, too, because they're going to be on stage at the Northeast Motorsports Museum, or New England Motorsports Museum. I got to get that right. We were the New England Motorsports Museum for so long that I'm still struggling with that we are New England's Racing Museum.
So, Dick, building on that thought right there, talking about the museum, tell everybody about the museum a little bit, because I hear from my friends, guys Bobby Seymour and Bentley Warren and all this, is that museum is really a sight to see.
Well, I think it is. The museum came from the idea that literally we were losing our history. What was happening is race cars would become obsolete, new stuff would come along, and folks couldn't sell the car because it was obsolete, and they cut it up. And maybe that was a car that had won a lot of races, maybe a lot of big races here in New England, and it was gone. Grandpa would die, and the family would look at the stuff he leaves behind, and there might have been a scrapbook of photographs of stock car racing at tracks that they wouldn't know about, and they'd say, who would ever want all this? And they'd throw the photos away. And now there's a place where all that stuff is resident, and that's the New England Racing Museum. It's on the same property as the Hampshire Motor Speedway. We rent 2 acres there, and the museum is built on top of it. By the way, our rent is $1 a year. We appreciate it. That's a price we can afford. It's a non-profit museum. There's only one person is paid. Every one of the rest of us is a volunteer, including me. And it's got racing from every kind of division that there are in New England, whether it's dirt modifieds or whether it's road racing or drag racing, motorcycles, go-karts. We got a piece of all of it at that museum. And it's cheap to get in. It's $10. It's open every Saturday from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon during the wintertime, other than for major holidays. When the weather gets nicer, we're open on Saturdays and Sundays from 10 to 4. It's 10,000 square feet. Usually we've got between 25 and 30 race cars on the floor. There's always a dozen or two drag race cars and motorcycles that are there. A very large trophy collection. Some of the most important trophies that have been won by racers here in New England are in that trophy case. And we've got a helmet collection with the helmets from a lot of people that are big-time people, but mostly people that raced here in New England, local folks. This is a museum that's all about local racing. It's about racing near you, near where you live.
Now, to put a bow on this conversation, which always a pleasure to have you on, the most important thing coming up on November 12th, Legends Day at the New England Racing Museum. Folks want to get tickets. Of course, you said tomorrow's the deadline. How can they do that, Dick?
It is. The best way to do it is go to the website, and the website is nermuseum.com. And you got to get your tickets by 5 o'clock tomorrow. We're about sold out, but we have to put the dinner order in. Part of this deal on the 12th is not only you're going to hear and see a lot of people that you've only maybe seen or heard on television or radio, but you're also going to get a dinner out of it, and that's part of the price of the ticket. The VIP seats are all sold out. They were sold out literally within days of this event being announced. And it's going to be a full house. I mean, there's very few tickets left. So if you want to go, get yourself on the internet and go to the New England Racing Museum website, and you can purchase your tickets there until they're gone. And when they're gone, that's it. There won't be any more.
That's it. That's all. Well, we will see you there. A couple of us from the show are going to be venturing up.
Oh, good.
We appreciate your time, as always. Always great to talk to you, and we will see you on the 12th.
Looking forward to it very much. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Dick Berggren joining us here on the show.